Welcome everybody, this is the Architecture Design Studio 2, the ARCH3002. My name is Professor András Greg, I think you already know me, and I will give a lecture today about the urban building blocks, the public buildings case study, and I will introduce some basic elements and basic principles of the building blocks. Let's talk about a little bit the urban building blocks for the first time. The typical elements and separated typical elements, what you have to know, and the basic tools. The road, one of the oldest and the most important structural elements in the cities and the settlements. These blocks and these different buildings, how they connected to each other, how they can touch each other, and how related to each other and fit to each other. It's very important, the neighbors, and of course the all around the neighborhoods, and the typical face elements, the typical materials, and the typical high elements structures in the city fabric. The second one is the city block, how you can see this arranged one city block and how they can split it and how they can complain it, this part of the city block, and how they can fit to the city block. The courtyard is the inverse of the block what we see before, because the courtyard and the city block is on the outside place there, and the courtyard and the inverse block is what is inside. The life is inside the faces and the buildings, how they reacted to each other and have faced together. The third one, the arcade, the passage. Most of the times they use it for the shops and for the different commercial functions, but it's also used by the public functions, and how we create a big lightly corridor between the different functions. We used to use it a lot of times. And the ribbon, the different subtle elements with the different density, how we can create it, and how we can create the different flat units and commercial units and building units. And this is a typical one, and you already know it from Denver, the art museum. It's a solitaire solution in standing alone separately. This building don't want to touch anything. Just show themselves and just standing alone in a space. Of course they related somehow with the neighbor buildings and the neighborhoods, like the materials, the height, different shape masses, and the shapes and the masses, about the fairs and the spheres and the cubes. But they are standing alone, they are separately standing around in a space, in a place. The group, you can see this group to each other, a new building integrate into the old one, so they create together a group. And the shed. You can see the different shed elements, the flat surfaces, and just the waving to the buildings, how they create from the smaller one to the higher one. And now we will investigate and observe some public buildings from the last 10 or 20 years, last 2 decades. I try to introduce shortly these buildings because you can find these buildings on the internet, you can find this building on the web page, so it's not necessary to tell everything for you. What you have, you can find on the internet, but I will try to introduce it from the architect view. For the first building is a Seattle Central Library from the OMA. I think you have already know it because we saw a film about the RAM, and you get some inspiration from this, and you get some inspiration from the architect, the Ram Koolhaas. He has the OMA architecture studio. So I will introduce some ideas and some things from the architect, from the designer architect who designed these buildings, because I think this is what related and what reality about the buildings. So this is by far one of the most inspiring project I know. And it's not just the skin or the structure. It's the new program relationships that make of this more than a mere library, but an enhanced public space around knowledge. The program was for the Central Library Seattle was 28 branch library system, including 33,000 square meters of the headquarters, reading room, book parlor, mixing chamber, meeting platform, living room, staff floor, children collection, and auditorium, and 4,600 square meters of parking. The Seattle Central Library defines the library as an institution no longer exclusively dedicated to the book, but as an information store where all potent forms of media, new and old, are presented equally and legibly. In an age where information can be accessed anywhere, is it the simultaneity of all media and, more importantly, the curatorship of their content that will make the library vital. Flexibility in contemporary libraries is conceived as the creation of generic floors on which almost an activity can occur. Programs are not separated rooms or individual spaces, not given unique characters. In practice, this means that bookcases define generic thought note script, reading areas, and opening day, but through the collection relentless expansion, inevitability come to encroach on the public space. Ultimately, in this form of flexibility, the library strangles the very attractions that differentiate it from other information resources. If you investigate the original program of the library, you can see how many different sections was before. The parking, the public forum, the entrance, the readers forum, the general information and periodicals, the children's center, the young adults teaching, running, the main collection, the governmental law, administration, operation. And you can see the square meter and the square foot the same for the 4 different sections. But from here we can see with the blue colors what means the books, what functions within the people use the books. It's 32% of the building. And you can see this is a library. Of course, first you could think maybe 70 or 80% will use the library for books, but not. The 32, the 1/3, but they used. So you can see the blue blocks and the 80 and the 68% is more. And the program consolidation, what should meet together and what next to each other and what work together. And the program reshuffle it more interesting way how we can move it, how we can make a movement between the different functions, and how we can make a connection, a corridor, or a passage, or an arcade between the different elements. And you can see in the section type, here is also the parking, the staff, the meeting, the spiral, the HQ, the kids, the living room, the mixing chamber, and the reading room. And from the previous slide, you can see this programs and functions work together, but here the section are different. And this section contains the ramps, the connection between the function, and the space, the airs between. Because it's not works just put together all these things. and not leave any spaces between, because it will be so crowded and so confused. But now with spaces, it's so visible, you can see through all the functions, how they work together. And it is also, you can see the empty Rayner, the Elliott Bay, the shadow, the sun, what is really important for these things. And you can see the function, the store function, the symbol, the books parts, and the H characters, and the HQ, the headquarters types. So, instead of this current ambitious flexibility, the library could cultivate a more refined approach by organizing itself into spatial compartments, each dedicated to, equipped for specific duties. And the tailored flexibility remains possible within each compartment, but without the threat of one section hindering the others. The architect's first operation was to comb and consolidate the library apparently ungovernable proliferation of programs and media. By accompanying they identified programmatic clusters, 5 of stability and 4 of instability. What you can see here, the 5 and the 4. The 5 instability and the 4 instability and 5 stability. This was the 5 stability programs and the 4 instability programs. Each platform is a programmatic cluster that is architecturally defined and equipped for maximum and dedicated performance. Because each platform is designed for a unique purpose, their size, flexibility, circulation, palette and structure, and the MIP vary. The spaces in between the platforms, functions, and trading floors where librarians informs and stimulate, where the interface between the different platforms is organized, spaces for work, interaction, and play. And by generatively modifying the superposition of floors in typical American high-rise, a building emerges that is the same time sensitive. The geometry provides shade and unusual quantities of daylight, where desirable. Contextual, each side reacts differently to the specific urban conditions and desired ways to iconic. The problem of traditional library organization is the flatness. Departments are organized according to floor plans. Each floor is discrete. The unpredictable fits of growth and contraction in certain succession are theoretically contained within a single floor. In 1920, the Seattle Public Library had no classification for computer science. By 1990, the section had exploded, as collections unpredictably swell materials and dissociated from their categories. Excess materials are put in the basement, moved to off-site storage, or become squatters of another, totally unrelated department. The book spiral implies a reclamation of the much compromised DVD system. By arranging the correction in the contents ribbon running from 0 to 99.9, the subject from a consextime that approaches the organic, each evolves relative to the others, occupying more and less space on the ribbon, but never forcing a rupture. And now you can see the spaces from interior side, how lightly the spaces, how lightly they can use the spaces. The arriving space, the arriving tools, you can easily and you can clearly see the vertical communication, the staircase. You can see the vertical communication easily, the bookstores and the book shaping, a small auditory, a small conference room, staircase, and with a nice equipment, and you can see here and you can read your books and you can just relax it. Not any inclusions. The vertical communication, the staircase is so clear, and it's this vertical communication, the staircase is cutted inside the bookstores, exactly on the functions, not next to the functions, between the functions, inside the functions. So while and during you travel from the first floor to the second floor, or from the second floor to the third floor, your travel is a journey between the different functions. You will not walk, and you will not use this vertical communications between just the empty and the solid empty surfaces and spaces. You are inside the function. And I think it's very inspiring and a very good idea. You can see the floor plans here, the entrance floor plans. When we arrive, we can easily see this whole space. We can understand the whole space. We can see the vertical communications. We can see the vertical communications here. We enter here, a small auditory, the small conference, if you get the small conference, the communication and the service, the back service of this whole things. Also a communication space. And the bookstores, not the regular way, just put on the space and just right angle stars. It's another one. You can see these elements. And you can see the sections, how they floated together, the big spaces between the functions, the spaces between the functions. So yeah, it's used a lot of square foot and the square meters. But on the other hand, it works with spaces, bigger spaces between the functions. So it's so lightly, so touchable, floating the spaces between the functions. I think this is really important. And the facets you can see. The second case study, what we will observe and investigate, is a radical community kitchen from the Kengo Kuma and the students of the Berkeley College of Environment Design. And the space and the place is Hokkaido, Japan, and the public kitchen. So it was an international design build competition, but I will introduce it. In response to an international design build competition, their team, the Kengo Kuma and the Berkeley students team, proposed a quintessentially Californian approach, embracing many ideas still new to Asia, from where most of us hail. These Californian ideas form into the nest we grow. That was the name of the project, Nest We Grow, which grow from a shared interest in the materials that make up our built environment, with a focus on renewable materials. Nest We Grow won the fourth annual International Design Build competition in 2014, and unlike structures built in the first years of the competition, it's in an open public structure. Its main intent is to bring people in the community together to store, prepare, and enjoy local foods in the setting of Hokkaido, Japan. Their team of graduate students, comprised of 4 Chinese and 1 American, sought to examine what structural and material elements they could combine to create this community and food-oriented space. They recognized how modest materials and action are celebrated in Berkeley and wanted to explore their implication in Asia. Their initial research started with techniques they find readily in California, including rammed earth walls and straw bale construction. They presented these ideas in pursuit of a building that would introduce renewable building techniques to an area of Japan that could take advantage of these concepts. What they found was an appreciation for the difficulty of applying transnational technology in a new environment. They also focused on a heavy timber construction technique coming from the US, which uses large sections of wood. In Japan, this translated to the composite column, which uses smaller pieces of wood and generate a larger column. It took considerably effort to identify a way to join materials, which was influenced by both local carpentry practices and the Japanese material market. They were also under a considerable time constraint, with the entire building process taking only 6 months to complete. The wood frame structure mimics the vertical spatial experiences of a Japanese larch forest from which food is hung to grow and dry. A T-platform in the middle of the nest creates a gathering space where the community can visually and physically enjoy food around, sunken by a fireplace. Local foods make up the elevation of the nest as people see the food forest floating above the landform. The wall at the base of the building, in addition creating a micro-topography, helps to block prevailing northwest winter wind. The nest takes advantage of the transparent plastic corrugated sheets on the facade and roof, allowing light in for the plants and heating the space during colder months, extending the usability of the nest. Sliding panels in the facade and roof open to facilitate air movement through the structure during the summer and warmer parts of the day. The T-platform sits up into the nest, keeping it in the warm air created by the skin during colder months and in the cross-ventilated area during the warm summer months. The opens of the facade allows the building to incorporate the surrounding natural environment into the interior climate, but can also be closed off to create a buffer between the two. The funnel-shaped roof harvests rain water and snowmelt. The collected water is delivered to tanks and are used to irrigate the plants and the concrete wall. The shape signifies the nest ability to bring nature in the form air, water, light into the nest. The program of the nest decided according the life circle of these local foods: growing, harvesting, storing, cooking, dining, and composting, which restart the cycle. All members of the community help to complete each stage, allowing the structure become a platform for group learning and gathering activities in the nest throughout the year. Community participation and stand completes the life cycle of local foods, which in a sympathetic relationship. This is the timeline, the lifetime of people and food in the nest. And this is the nest for people and food. The third one is MVRDV Studio, Dutch Pavilion for Expo in 2000, Hanover, Germany. It was an exhibition building. The theme of the Expo of 2000 in the Hanover: humanity, nature and technique. The objective is to emphasize that there are limitations and challenges to technological progress of a world. The name was the Holland Create Space. The theme for Netherlands Pavilion and the 2000 World Expo in Hanover was to showcase a country making the most out of limited spaces. 6 stacked Dutch landscapes from an independent ecosystem communicating cultural sensibility, progressive thinking and contemporary culture. This stack different things. Progressive thinking and contemporary culture are combined with traditional values. The architecture suggests Dutch open-mindedness while confirming the positive stereotypes of tulips, windmills, and the dikes. The humanity, nature, and technique. The objective is to emphasize that our limitation and challenges to the technological progress of the world, which was especially being expressed in even separated exhibition. Since the Netherlands is one of the most inhabited and prosperous countries in the world, the environment is a very important issue. The Holland creates spaces based on 4 themes: creating space for the environment, new solutions, the land, and the nature. The Netherlands wants to present itself as a society which, in a relatively small ground area, is always searching for the right balance between the freedom and strictly organized environment and economy individual society. And you can see in this figure the seller offices here, the agriculture area here, the exhibition services here, the forest area, main exhibition area, the structural system, the water and island. And you can find a whole city, a whole small city, what necessary for the people and necessary for the society. The MVRDV architects designed a pavilion to emphasize the variety, environments, and wide range of activities developed in the Netherlands. In principle, the MVRDV designed a building where the environments and activities are mixed into several stories. Therefore, is it not that peculiar that forest is situated on the 4th floor? The architects do not call his building but a stacked landscape. The visitors are transported by the elevators up to highest floor at the 4 meters above ground level, where a lake is situated pointing on the large part of Netherlands above sea. From floor 6 down to ground level, visitors make a tour through the Dutch landscapes going at the staircase, the main exhibition on the 5th floor. From here, one of the entrances to the 3-story where about 35 living oak trees accompany the 14 structural trees. The 3rd level was originally meant for the root system, the living oak trees. However, the root system is complete in the 1st floor, and the 3rd floor becomes a floor for all kinds of exhibition and services. Despite being a small, crowded country, the Netherlands succeed in exporting agricultural products like flowers all over the world, which is expressed by the exhibition on the 2nd floor, the flowers floor. On the 1st floor, the visitors walk through the spectacular sandy seashore side. On ground level, below the dunes of level 1, a range of services including bars, restaurants, and situated. After closing a world exhibition in November 2000, it's planned to demolish the floors 4 till 6 and turn the building into 10-story office building by adding 7 office stories with a concrete structure on top of the 3rd floor. Consequently, the trees will also be removed. It's also an example from the MVRDV studio from Netherlands, and this is a marked hall, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Is a market and housing together, the function. So Rotterdam now has a new icon. It's Markt Hall, Rotterdam, at a historical location at the Binnen Road, next to the Block station and the largest weekly open-air fresh food and harbor market in Rotterdam. The first covered market in the Netherlands was released. Markt Hall includes a huge market floor and the ground floor under an arc of apartments. Its shape, its colorful interior, and the height turns Markt Hall into the unique spectacular. Unique is not only its shape and size, but especially the way the different functions are combined. The combination of an apartment building covering a fresh food market with food shops, restaurants, and a supermarket of underground parking found nowhere else in the world. Markt Hall was a success already before being realized. It's a new and fresh icon which already has attracted large quantities of international press and visitors. The centrally located building is rooted in a city history located per late medieval Lawrence Church and the location of the former dike along River Rote. The river was liberated at the end of the 19th century. The 1950s buildings on either side of the old High Line suddenly faced a new square with their backside and have replaced ever since. A nation of apartment buildings covering a fresh food market, food shops, restaurant, and supermarket. Markt Hall means an important impulse to its surrounding area, which is a strong contribution for the urban economy. Markt Hall, with its daily fresh food markets, shops, and apartments, creates coherence and connections in the neighborhood, which will reach a new centrality. After completion of Markt Hall, the city of Rotterdam started to refurbish Binnen Road Square to make it more attractive also on days that there are no outdoor market. After the reformation, the outdoor market will be configured. The market lanes will connect it seamlessly to the entrances of Markt Hall to allow the public to easily enter and exit the building and create in between the two markets. In October 2004, the team of MRVD won a competition organized by the city of Rotterdam for design and construction of Markt Hall. The municipality wanted to extend existing open air market with a covered edition. According to stricter European rules, in the future, the open-air sale of fresh and chilled food would not be permitted anymore. Next to this, municipality wanted to augment the amount of inhabitants in the city center in order to create more capacity for the service in the area. The demanded program housing, parking, and the Markt Hall is for an obvious solution. Two residential slabs with an economically constructible Markt Hall in between. Provost and the MRVD studio had been in the south of Europe that these kind of market halls are often dark, introverted buildings with little connection to the surrounding urban area. The Markt Hall Rotterdam, however, was to be an important impulse in the development of the Lawrence Quarter neighborhood and had strengthened the eastern side of the city center. A highly public open building with good accessibility was needed. The team decided to just flip the two slabs on the market, which led the larger hall with the two wide openings toward the city. In order to make construction more efficient, a curve was chosen that fitted the traditional elevator core. By adding some space to level floors for extra retail space, the corresponding volumes of the arch emerged 120 meters long, 70 meters wide, and 40 meters tall. The buildings needed to be as open as possible to attract the people. At the same time, it had to be closer to water conditions. Keeping the closure as transparent as possible, the cable net facade was chosen, which needed very few constructive elements. Its principle, the comparable tennis racket, in which the steel caper used string between which the glass is mounted. This cable net facade is the largest of its kind in Europe. Because of this miracle, joining this part inside visible and from outside, its luscious shapes and colors invite the public enter the building. The exterior, the market exuding grey natural stone, and same the pavements, emphasis to the another interior. You can see this whole big space here, how welcome and how invite the people from the street. From the street you can see just only these colorful shapes and colorful lightly things here. And with the glass and with the mirror, you can see here very lightly interior space, floating the space inside. It's not a separated and divided space from the city. It's fit together, and it's the continuing way, is the part of the city. Is the city. Anyway, the reality, this is the city. The big elements, the big shapes, the pictures and images on the wall with foods and the lightning things and the windows there. Marco is a building without the backside. All sides of the building are accessible or shop windows. The interior supply for the hall, the shops, restaurant, and therefore located underground. The first basement floor features an exhibition court which delivery happened with vans. From the exhibition court, freight elevators reach the market hall. In this way, inhabitants are not hindered by distribution activities that often occur in early hours in the morning. Also in the basement, in Albert Agent's apartment, Ethos and Golden Gall. The delivery for these stores organized through the underground tunnel leading to the hidden elevators in Brickner Square. In this way, larger lorries can operate in distance to the hall. Inhabitants have storage rooms and shared bicycle rooms in basement. Inhabitants can reach their apartments through the 6 separate entrances, leading elevators and the double helix flight stairs. Due to the curve of the structure, the elevator hall is gradually, floor by floor, changing in sign and location. At the ground floor, elevator located at the inner facade, and the top floor towards the other facade. Each elevator's hall services a maximum for apartments to which have windows at the market of large grass towards the outside. The building is connected to the city heating and thermal storage system. This is the most important stimulative factors. Underneath the building, which is also heat and cool number of adjacent buildings in the surrounding area. The various functions in the building can exchange heat and cold. For the hall itself, extensive recharge was conducted to create a comfortable interior climate with an extremely low energy use. The hall is naturally ventilated underneath the glass facade, fresh air flows, and it rises toward the roof. The design vision of the describes market and urbanism. The function makes this integrated design. A 24-hour building which is a public and lasting addition to the city of Rotterdam. The tenants of Market Hall have signed the so-called Green Lease Agreement regarding system and performance requirements. This covers the use of water, energy waste, and the use of healthy construction material. In this way, the system of demolition reaches further than just the cask of the building. And the Market of Rotterdam is a completely new concept, the first building of its kind, of hybrid between the market hall and the housing. Rotterdam experienced the worldwide scope with a new urban typology by using the apartments to create an arch that covers the market and new public buildings emerges, which could not have been this grand without housing. The horseshoe-shaped arch and the market hall consist housing from the 3rd and the 7th floor, in total 102 rental apartments and 126 apartments for sale. Each apartment has an outside terrace and the full width of the unit, a 24 penthouse. The top floor have tanks and arch shape, a very wide roof terrace. The apartments can exist via 6 entrances to the street level. You can see the floor plan of this, and you can see how you can reach the different levels. The second level from the first level from the market hall, and you can see the different housing, flat apartments, and it's changing all the levels. And this is operated to the first level and operated to the facade from the street. It's in the glasses and the net of the glass facades. This is also from the MVRD. Function is housing. Its name is park rent. The park rent from the parts of the garden city west of Amsterdam. It consists of 174 standard small housing units located in 3 ARCH buildings and positioned next to a small park. The new design relocates the housing into compact but impressive volume, thereby conserving more space for the park. The proportion of the outline for the block, 135 long and 34 high and 34 deep, could be considered as mansion-like in relation to the even more specific park and the new country estate arises that adds character to the park. You can see these big openings, the floating displays, the floating terrain connected the inside park to the outside park and floating together. It's of course, there is a public space and the private separated space also. And you can see the terraces and the windows to face to the public and face next together to the private separated space. The program includes 5 towers that are sandwiches between a large raised communal patio and a series of rooftop penthouses. This creates an open and airy block and offers different views from all directions. The semi-public patio is raised so that it overlooks the park. The gardens offers protection from rain and wind, secured access, and more intimate space and playgrounds. It will be used more frequently and by different people than the park. This area becomes a center space of the inhabitants and outdoor living room. This idea is accentuated by the use of soft furniture, decorative walls, tiling, and flooring finishes, plants, and chandeliers. The towers are positioned in such a way that they not block views from the neighborhood to the park. They also allow all of the apartments to view to the park and the orientation of the sun. This is achieved by perforating the roof plates 3 places. The 3 places. And you can see the floor plans, the different. You can see the hall, the spaces floating between the different shapes. You can see how they use maybe the 60% of the floor plan for the functions, for the living functions, the housing functions, and the other place just for the garden and for the park, because this is very necessary for the people. If you design an apartment, if you design a housing function, it's really necessary to somehow put in place a natural environment, design the natural environment to the housing program. And you can see this 2 big hall that separate the hall and divide it to 3 different functions and the 3 different housing. How I can see the towers and positioned in such a I would say the towers are positioned in such a way they not block views from the neighborhood and from the park. You can see the inside terraces, the inside park, how they can use it and face the facades together. And like interior and interior and exterior together floating with these elements. The towers and the space between the shapes and the space between the facades. And you can see they used white and they used a gray bricks and the gray facade elements. What is outside is gray, what is inside is white. This contrast means the different levels and the different qualities of the buildings. What is private, what is turned to the private space, and what is turned to the public space. It's also a housing in a city hall and a public building. The function is city hall and public building. The architect and architect studio was Manuel Gatrand from France. Manuel Gatrand Architecture it's a Parisian-based architecture firm funded by Manuel Gatrand. The team of over 15 architects, developers, project for public constructing authorities as well as private firms both in France and abroad. Under the leadership of Manuel Gatrand, each architect project manager in charge of the project. The firm Poetic Architecture embraces the endless variety of forms and colors, using the most contemporary methods of planning in a variety of areas ranging from cultural facilities to residential, commercial, and office buildings. The site is a visual liaison point between the center of Saint-Étienne and the new Châteauroux neighborhood, which it forms major entranceway. It also consists a pole grouping several government bodies that will set up there: Regional Development Authority, Tax Services, EPORA, Saint-Étienne Metropole, and so on. Service and leisure facilities will also be part of the mix. Shared corporate restaurant, cafe, tourism bureau for the metropolitan area. The idea of develop a long-built continuum on the site to interact with the adjacent streets. A linear construction that rears up and unfolds but also hugs the ground line to form a low accessible building, one of the open spacious courts and leaves vault overhangs. Each of its large bays serves an access route. The main portal opens to the concourse of the Avenue of Gruner, which draws pedestrians into project and siding movement. High ceiling shelters and manifest the entranceway, which is the finest and largest of three. The other two large spots open the project streets and irradiate a lot, interconnecting pedestrian itineraries in the area. They desire for continuity in construction does not simply reflect the idea of building a legible and unitary urban landmark. It also provides the flexibility that project needs. In fact, the principle behind the continuum is to imagine a set of communicating parts that enable the user administration to merge into a whole, one and all, and to evolve according to their needs in harmony with those of other tenants. The absence of break surfaces will ensure that things remain open-ended with the possibility of extending returning space. And you can see this continuum here is floated together and leaves spaces for the entrance, leaves spaces between the different functions, leaves spaces for the public square. So it could be a big mess without any openings, just use the full space of the territory. But it's not important because they use a big flat square foot. And now you can see they use different levels for different functions: the public, the entrance, the market, the city hall, the different functions inside there. The absence of breaking surfaces will ensure that things remain open-ended with the possibility of extending and reducing space. The project is like a large Aztec serpent rising on a lot. Its body has three identical outer faces, and its underside that is different. The screen of silvery transparent scales of a bright yellow throat, shiny and opaque. This dual treatment of surfaces observes a simple logic shared throughout, which aims to express things clearly in folds. Depending on this movement, the yellow underside in either a floating canopy and an interior vertical wall, accompanying internal pedestrian movements, which is rich luminous presence. The nearness of the so much gorgeous yellow brighten up pavements and glazed elevation, casting on golden washes over them like sunlight. This is a project that is about bringing together yellow and gray, silver and gold. And you can see the pictures from the night shadows, the movement, and you can see the space and the surface of the city is not flat, sloping, So they have the continuum reacts to the spaces and to the city fabric. Interior spaces to the parking design. You can see these yellow faces, the different settlements, the different dimensions of the windows and of the doors also. It's just an interesting part. I will not introduce fully of this because it was a competition plan from the same architecture studio, Manuel Gatrand. It was a human body museum competition, architecture competition in Montpellier, France. And it's also about how they could play with the different functions, for different public functions. The private functions, like the exhibition space, the private and public functions, like the restaurants and the coffee. And the public space was floating from the city and from the park, and how they can connect the public and the private, and the public function for the private function together. You can see is one big mass is floating above the public square, and this floating mass is opened from the rooftop to the public space on the ground floor, to the first floor. And they created a grand and the city park on the rooftop, and they connected to each other. So they used the space 2 times. They used the square foot space, the ground space 2 times. Of course, before it was a park, but now it's a park on the rooftop and the public space with pavements on here, and they integrated also the human body museum inside the buildings. You can see this opening, this huge opening to get some light, get some sunlight to the public space, and give the space for the people to use it, how they can use it and how they want to use it. Water surfaces, sitting surfaces, the community surfaces. And this is a paper model of the buildings with halls interact to the public space, and the cafeteria, bars and shops there. And on the main level, the main mass includes the body museum. It's also with the competition, the shopping mall competition, how they can play with the different shapes and masses. And the last project and the last example what I will introduce you, I think you already know me if you watched the movie what I showed you before, this short movie about the buildings and about the cities. The ARCH3002 group is a very famous and very inspiring company, an architecture studio. And this is an energy plant from Denmark, from Copenhagen. It's a Copenhagen energy plant and the urban recreation center. The Copenhagen also now is in a Magerbakke, what is opens as a new breed of waste to energy plant topped with a ski slope, hiking trail, and a climbing wall, embodying the notion of hedonistic sustainability while aligned with Copenhagen goals of becoming the world first carbon neutral city by 2025. I know it's not the typical city or urban buildings what I showed before, but I think it's really important. I know it's not a public building, but this exception, it's also react for the city and for the city problems, what you need for your design in this semester. And the Copenhagen is 41,000 square meter waste of energy, the plant with an urban recreation center and environmental education hub, turning social infrastructure into an architectural landmark. The internal volumes of the power plant are determined by the precise positioning and organization of its machinery in height order, creating an efficient sloping rooftop fit for a 9,000 square meter ski terrain. At the top, experts can glide down the artificial ski slope with the same length as an Olympic halfpipe, test the freestyle park of timed slalom course, while beginners and kids practice on the lower slopes. Skiers ascend the park from the plateau lift, carpet lifts, or a glass elevator for a glimpse inside the 24-hour operations and waste in Canary return. I think I told you before, I really like the Bjarke Ingels groups because they use infographics, what is really clear, and it can really introduce the conception of the building. And for me, always the most important part of a building, the conception and the program. The interior volumes of the new waste energy plant have been determined by engineering and technical criteria. Due to the sheer size and requirements for the precise positioning, the primary structure of the building is to be integrated with the machinery. Fun factory. They propose a new breed of waste energy plant, one that is economically, environmentally, and socially profitable. Instead of considering a merged research center as an isolated architectural object, they consider, of course, the assignment to design a facade as an opportunity for the local context. The building is gently wrapped with a continuous facade made of stacked aluminum bricks. The openings between the bricks are letting cascades of daylight into the deep process hall and administration space. The bricks on the facade functions as planters, creating a green facade and turning the building into a green mountain from afar with a white mountain top. While sustainable energy has become increasingly important in media and politics, the understanding of the issue itself is still very abstract. Does anybody know what the ton of the CO2 looks like? We propose a simple modification to the smokestacks, which will allow a puff smoke ring whenever 1 ton of fossil CO2 is released. This will serve a communicative function as a gentle reminder of the impact of consumption. And the open skin in Copenhagen. They propose to turn the roof of the new MSU Research Center into an artificial sky slope for the citizens of Copenhagen, where it will be possible to ski all the year round. The slope will be ecological, upending the convention of the energy-intensive indoor and open sky resort. The three-piste. The geometry of the roof scale supports 3 slopes of different gradients. This will accommodate skiers with a broad range of experience from novices to pros. There will be a total of 500 meter plus of sky runs in the terrain park. Access to the skis pass through an elevator ejecting the smokestacks. The elevator has a glass wall facing the interior of the plant, allowing recreational buffs and sightseers to have a glimpse into international workings of the plant. There will be also 2 plateau lifts and 2 carpet lifts. The roof is not only going to function as a ski slope, but like the real mountain with the green forest areas, hike trail, climbing walls, and maybe even a motion bike rail. On top of the slope there will be a weaving plateau and a little cafe. Rather than consider ARCH as an isolated architecture object, the building enveloped a concept opportunity for the local context while forming a destination and reflection on progressive vision of the company. Company continuous facade comprises 1 and 2 tall meter hall and 2.3 wide aluminum bricks stacked like gigantic bricks overlapping with each other. In between glass windows are daylight to reach deep inside the facility, while larger openings on the southwest facade illuminate workstations on the administrative floors. And you can see the green facade and green surface on the rooftop. On the longest vertical facade, on 85 climbing wall is installed the tallest artificial climbing wall in the world for new world records to be broken with views inside the factory. at the bottom of the ski slope, 100 square meter upper skyboard welcomes locals and visitors to wind down once the boots are off. Formerly a piece of infrastructure industrial zone, Copenhagen becomes the new destination for families, friends, celebration, and the economically, environmental, and socially profitable. And you can see the skiing parts, how they can use it from this special aluminium and special plastic material. They can use it integrated green facilities. And the interior part of the building, the structural elements, it's really nice for the civil engineering junctions and connections. And you can see the whole biggest 85 meters climb wall, what they can use for climbing the buildings. So thank you, and thanks for your attention. I know I was not so short and shortly, but I hope you learn a lot of things from the examples, how we can create public buildings in the city, how it's important to integrate and put in place the public functions to the public buildings, like the public squares, the green facilities, how important the sustainability, how important to mix different functions like housing and market hall, like the factory and the visitor center. So I hope you will think like this. Just create your spaces, create your functions, and create your buildings and the given territory and the given place. And homework for the next week, please send me your drawings in ARCH or take a photo about your sketches and drawings about your buildings. And please write few sentences and few things about these examples, what I presented today for you. Which was your favorite? Why that was your favorite? What you learned from the different examples? And have a good day and take care of you and your family in these times. And goodbye.